Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Mars, and today we're going to be talking about return on investment for instructional design. Educators are constantly trying to balance the need for training that supports the learner's training objectives, but is also efficient in a resource-constrained environment. That comes from Johannesson et al. 2007. This process of determining the worthiness or effectiveness of an instructional design strategy is known as return on investment, and that was from Moore and Deal 2018. All right, you can see here the agenda for this presentation. I'm going to introduce return on investment, and we're actually going to use the acronym ROI for the remainder to discuss return on investment. We'll go over some return on investment models, discoveries, summarize what we've learned, and then I'll give you my references. The term return on investment is probably most commonly heard in the business world, where the return is referring to how much money the company makes based on the amount of money they've invested. However, we're going to be talking about return on investment from an educational instructional design perspective, which is obviously not going to result in money earned. So the return in instructional design is going to be the educational benefit that the instructional strategy produces. This is coming from Smith and Knapp 2019, which is going to be the primary source for this presentation. Now, ROI is hard to define in the educational context because educational benefit is certainly not as tangible as money and therefore hard to measure. Furthermore, as technology is becoming more advanced and therefore more expensive, it's going to become even more necessary to find methods to determine the benefit in the implementation. Quoted by Reiser and Dempsey 2018 on page 87 of our textbook, Michael Scriven defines evaluation as the process of determining the merit, worth, and value of things. In summary, this definition is actually going to work to define what we're looking at when we talk about return on investment in instructional design. In the following slides, we're going to go over some of the models that were developed and reviewed by our primary source, Smith and Knapp 2019, as well as discuss some methods and techniques for implementing return on investment strategies. Smith and Knapp have done a lot of research on return on investment when it comes to instructional design, which is why they've been the primary source for this presentation. And in their model, return on instructional investment, they first did a literature review going over what existing models are there for return on investment as it relates to education. And we'll go over some of those models in the following slides. The model they developed is based on the Six Sigma process, which was first invented by the Motorola company. And you can see the steps here: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. In the first step, we're going to define what the problem is. So the employee is going to get with the appropriate stakeholders and help define the problem. In the second step, we're going to measure. We're going to identify and collect data to help determine what the root cause or causes are in collaboration with the key stakeholders. In the third step, we're going to try to analyze and determine a model which is going to identify and prioritize the root causes of the problem. In the fourth step, improve, you're actually going to conduct the testing to determine whether the programs is efficient. And then finally, in the control phase, as long as we've gotten good results from the first four steps, then we're going to implement the program and then continue to monitor the program to maximize efficiency. Using this model in case studies, they determined it to be highly effective, and I would encourage you guys to explore this model further for your return on investment needs. The return on investment in education model developed by Frankenhovey 2014 was also used in the research by Smith and Knapp 2019. So in this model, there's a 5-step process: identify, consider, define, weigh, and make. So first you're going to identify the core need. Basically, what is the problem? Very similar to Smith and Knapp. Consider a broad range of investment options. So what are potential solutions? Whereas Smith and Knapp looks at what are the root causes. This one looks at what are possible solutions. Then you're going to define the metrics and gather data. This is similar to the Smith model. Weigh what options so that you have some sort of measurable criteria, and then you're going to use them as measurable criteria and the data to make your investment decisions. Achievement value analysis by Kim 2014 was also used by Smith and Knapp in their research. While this could be considered a model, it's more of tips for use when you're doing return on investment research for educational environments. Now, the first thing that Kim challenges is making sure that you're grouping students by their need, and then you're going to take those needs and measure the outcomes based on the skills that are being taught and how long it takes for the students to achieve the outcome. And then we need to be honest, fully and accurately capturing all costs. So it's not just the initial investment of the program, it's the maintenance of the program, the cost of training on the program, all costs considered when making these decisions. The academic return on investment model developed by Levenison et al. Was also used by Smith and Knapp in their research. The nice thing about this model is it is a formula. So you're going to take the increase in student learning, which you get to determine the matrix, multiply that by the number of students that you helped using your intervention, and divide that by the total amount of money that the intervention cost. Now, Levenson et al. Does discuss some obstacles that need to be overcome before implementation of the model, and if you want to look more into that, I'd suggest you look at Smith and Knapp 2019, as well as the proper steps in conducting this model. So they offer 4 obstacle tips and then 5 steps for implementation. Bosser 2014 was a study conducted that looked at return on investment in educational settings and determined some discoveries of things that we need to be aware of as educational professionals, and this was cited by Smith and Knapp in their research. Some of the big hits was, first off, there's a lot of lack of productivity or low productivity in a lot of educational institutions. They're just really not maximizing the resources that they have, or they're putting money into areas that shouldn't be as important, such as athletic programs. There's been a big shift in our collegiate institutions to shift towards big, nice football stadiums and programs rather than researching money on academia. Then also, too many states are looking at spending dollars on programs that fail to improve students' outcomes, and that's going to be discussed more in my summary slide. Alright guys, I just really want to thank you for your time. I do want to leave you with a few closing points. First off, when we're looking at these tests and determining the return on investment, we need to be looking at empirical data, using actually controlled tests, not making decisions based on feeling. A lot of times we get an instructor or someone who's really emotionally attached to a product and then either getting rid of it or choosing to implement it. It can be tricky. On that note, don't get tricked by new and flashy technology. A lot of times we'll go to conventions and there'll be some new technology and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing, we need to implement this right now. But just remember, just because it's new and flashy doesn't mean it's the best thing for our students. So we need to make sure we're using the models to do the analysis to determine whether it's going to be effective. And then don't be afraid to cut a method. If there's a technology that's no longer serving a good use to the students, then we need to get rid of it. And that brings me to my final point. Don't be afraid on the flip side to try new technology. A lot of times we're just happy with the status quo. We want to just continue with it, but there might be a new piece of equipment or a new technology that's going to be a much better fit for our instruction and our students. Thanks for your time. Blessings.